is going on, everybody? This your boy Sean, aka Puff Comics 83, and we are back after a week off. And I am joined by my co-host Varangian Vigilante. How are you doing, sir?
Doing well, especially since we're talking my favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme movie today, and in general, like one of my favorite movies. And how are you doing, Sean?
I'm doing great, and I watched the movie today because I'm on vacation. I was hoping to be in North Carolina, but that didn't work out. So I'm like, man, might as well just enjoy the vacation while it's happening. So I was like, let me watch the movie a couple hours before I go live, so I have it fresh in my mind. And the quote I chose is a deep one. The higher the stakes, the more I like it, and that really set the tone for this film. And I'll say this: when it comes to Van Damme films, and you hit the nail on the head when we had our last conversation, like this movie don't really get talked about much.
Exactly.
And it's not your typical Van Damme film. It's not action heavy. It's not kung fu heavy. It's not even tournament heavy. It's very different. More in the Legionnaires of military experts and trying to define some self-worth in your character. And I think that really makes this movie work. And you're more invested into the characters and what they're trying to achieve, because all these characters are running away from something.
Yeah, that's that's like the whole concept of the Foreign Legion.
Yeah, and they're trying to find whatever worth that they have and reclaim something. But that's what makes this movie work. And you're invested into the characters. You're invested into how they're gonna evade this threat that they have within their rankings. So yeah, I really enjoyed this film, and it's again a movie that don't really get that much talk. I rarely see it on TV, and when I did watch it at the time when I was younger, it didn't really hold my interest, so I never really gave it the chance. But watching it again, it's like, man, this movie is really enjoyable, very underrated for a Van Damme film.
Exactly. Exactly. Like I said, this is actually one of my favorite movies, and the crazy thing is that this movie is a reimagining of March or Die with Gene Hackman and with Terence Hill, which is an even better movie. Like that one, is just pure gold, and this one changes like a little bit, like the whole boxing thing in the beginning, where for Van Damme's character, this gives like him the reason he has to flee from the mob. So what you do in French at the time, they must say, well, you go quickly to the Foreign Legion. At this point of time, the Foreign Legion was not asking many questions why you want to join them. This changed today, so you can't be like a murderer or something and then just go there and say, hey, take me and I'm safe. So that's no longer goes. But I mean, the whole concept of a Foreign Legion is actually genius. You're basically hiring like crooks and people that have outlook on the future, etc., to fight for your country while you don't have to sacrifice your own people. Especially when it's a country like France that doesn't really have men.
It's like I said, the movie is very enjoyable, and I get invested into the characters. And it's funny how you could just randomly join the Legionnaires and they accept you, and it's like, what the hell did I just sign up to? Because now you got to go through this vigorous.
But it's still nowadays, it's especially, when you wanna, because French still has like overseas possessions, like for example, like still like in South America, etc. And you don't want to be like, they don't want to send like their own people like into the jungles of like Suriname, etc. So it's better to hire like foreign people. Also, way better for the newspapers at home, since nobody likes to have like their own countrymen come home like in body bags. But the great thing, of course, is also for the people that after a certain amount of time, if you survive, you get like a French citizenship. So like this is for many people also of course like the goal. Like you get pay and you get citizenship, and you are also seen like in high regard. But of course, the dangers are high. You know, still nowadays in Africa, in South America, since nobody's really a fan of colonial powers.
No.
uh,
And the majority of the film takes place in North Africa.
yeah, it's and the movie takes place like in 1922, so like 4 years. Yes, so 4 years after the First World War, and of course, like as everybody in Europe after the Great War, everybody took like a huge hit, and so of course, like for France at this time, it's like they have to tighten their grips on the colonies to not lose them, and especially like in North Africa, you had like huge movements of local citizens that want to get away from France. Which that's actually one of my few little criticisms of this movie is compared, especially with the original, is that the character of El Grim, like the leader of the Berber, the Desert Warriors, is barely shown here. While in the original, like El Grim was first of all portrayed by Ian Holmes, the great lady Ian Holmes, we of course mostly know from Bilbo Baggins and also from Ash from Alien. So he added a lot of gravitas to the role of El Grim, and you had like way more dialogue and a weird relationship with the officer of the Foreign Legions, which is not really mentioned here. So like El Grim only comes like very late in this movie and barely speaks.
Yeah, because he has very small scenes. He pops up here, and all you do is see him on his horse,
Yeah.
you know, looking pretty menacing in a calm like demeanor. And it's like this would have been interesting had the character we got to see a bit more of him, because
Yeah.
I felt like he had a presence in the film, but it wasn't exploited enough.
Yeah, that's where I totally say watch the like original movie, because you have two late acting greats like Gene Hackman and Ian Holmes, like being both like they both respect each other, but of course they're both enemies.
And you know, one of the big themes of the film that I like is that with the four main characters, they're all trying to escape something in their past.
Yeah.
And that's what led to the Legionnaires. But the one that stands out to most is Luther for me.
Mhm.
But I think all four characters have different ways of why they're there. You know, Luther is, you know, somebody from the United States, and in the 1920s, racism was still at an all-time high. So he wanted to escape America. But then when he realized when he got there and he started to notice things, he's like, well, damn, it ain't really no different. And it's like, no matter where I go, I'm still going to be trapped in this racial cycle that's never going to get away from.
Yeah, because of course his goal was that the Foreign Legion basically gives him like a free ticket to go to Africa.
Africa, yeah.
But it's not Africa. North Africa is not sub-Saharan Africa. So
No.
that was even, I think, this is like one of these things in this movie, you know, later on when they were like surrounded without ammunition, like in the fort, and they sent it out Luther like to go to the other fort to get some help, because like he's the closest you can pass. He's like
no,
he's black. He's not North, and it's not North African. And like, of course, they immediately know this.
When they say, "Oh, you're a native, you'll fit in," I'm like, what? And look, he's a foreigner just as much.
Yeah, and even if this would take place like in the chart, like in one of the black colonies of France, you know, when you see videos today of like an African American taking a vacation in Africa, they stick out like a sour thumb, like from the native population. It's like it's like vastly different.
And the culture is different. What they eat is different. Yeah, you're gonna stick out like a sore thumb, you know. And that's why, you know, with the whole, especially during that civil rights movement and stuff, like you had a group that wanted to go back to Africa, but it's like, man, it's completely different. You're not gonna fit in. You're gonna stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah,
That's a bad idea. But you
I mean,
understand the motive, because it's like what we're dealing with in America is like what worse we could deal with over there.
I think in the future we have also to talk the Nicolas Cage movie, like the Lord of War. I think it's called.
I think it's called that.
Yeah,
I
because
know what you're talking about.
because Liberia is such an interesting topic, especially as a failed state.
Yeah. And the other character that I really liked was Macintosh. Played by Nicholas Farrell.
Very interesting character and very versatile and multifaceted. In general, what I love about this movie is that they are not really like just stereotypes. They feel like real people. And also, like with the other Legionnaires, when in the beginning, they have like their fights and they don't like each other. For example, like also like the big blonde guy who like in the beginning has like his problems with like Luther and the others, and then later, because of course they have like a common enemy, like he sacrifices himself so the others like can get back to the fort. Which I love, what I really love about this movie, that shows that that there's like something bigger than just like and like a mutual like dislikes or like bully like or anything, etc. But it's like when you basically fight and bleed on the same side, this changes people.
Just like the two guys that Galagani sent in there to take out Island, they realized like, we're in a completely different battle.
Yeah.
One of them even told them like, I didn't take the money on the dive, So, common ground is, I may not like you, but we're in a far bigger battle than just me and you.
It's like we're in the same shithole, and it's very unlikely that anybody's gonna make it alive here. And
but when it came to Macintosh, I like how multifaceted his character is. You know? He's very well developed. He's a ashamed British colonel, who used to be a major, but his gambling habits, writing the bad checks, it caught up to him. And also he had the weight of shaming his father.
Yes.
So that really added some gravitas to his character, that, he has this whole past with his gambling issues, him being dishonestly discharged from the British Army, and then the shame of, letting his father down. And it really adds to what I really like about what he said there. The higher the stakes, the more he liked it. His addiction to gambling. He just can't, and that's a major issue. Once you fall into that trap of, I can't stop gambling, all this money I need to gamble, it becomes a problem.
Especially when you start gambling your friends.
Yeah, and he did that in this movie because he saw an opportunity to get back have some redemption, and he was going to sell out Island. And again, it's like, I really enjoyed this character development. Movies like this, where like the main star is there, especially in who's known for action films, like most of these movies want to just focus on him. But this movie was well developed and focusing on multi-characters.
And we also know that that Van Damme, he loves like the foreign legion, like the storytelling, of course, with Leon.
And then I was thinking, I was like, man, this would have been a nice double feature if we did Lionheart.
Yeah.
Because
we can still do Lionheart in the next week.
But see, next week I want to talk The Quest.
Yes.
I figured let's do The Quest, because that's another film that I need to reevaluate and watch. But this movie was really good, and I love how the Legionnaires, it was brutal training with just walking through the desert.
Yeah, it's like this movie has so many fantastic quotes, especially like every quote from Jean Chef like Steinkampf like is like immediately like going in there like in a
I ain't gonna lie.
bones.
I call that man Victor Maitland because that's what I'm used to seeing. But it's funny how the fourth character that was focused on the Legionnaires is the character that you kind of had an inkling that, yeah, he's gonna be the first one to die.
Well, you never show the picture of a girl winning at home. That's a death.
And he was the only one that didn't have something like running to the Legionnaire. Like he saw joining the Legionnaire as something that he could be successful, he could be a hero, and he can make her proud. But at the same time, he was the weak link of the four characters, and you could see it in his eyes. You could see it in how he presented himself. Like when they went to the brothel with the woman, he was already scared because he's like, I got a girlfriend. Like, I don't know if I should do this. So like, you already caving in.
I love like those. It's like usually it's for testing. It's like when you go back to your girlfriend and you wanna know what you're doing. So you gotta test here, like in a North African like bordel. In general, I also think that like the sets are beautiful, and it really gives it really gives you this 20s feel of the last century. So
even the weapons.
Oh, the weapons also
like the heavy machinery guns.
Yeah, what's the craziest thing? I think that's a Maxim, which was basically like the Maxim basically actually made colonialism really possible, especially for the British, like because you can really take care of a lot of people, even when you're like in a minority. But the crazy thing is that, like in the Ukraine-Russian war, that when there was a lack of weapons, they took like the Maxim out of like the museums and used it in battlefield. So this weapon is still used on battlefields today. It's crazy.
Wow.
It's
But they definitely utilized it in this film, and
yeah,
the set pieces were like the one set piece that I really liked was when they got trapped in the trenches when they saw the water, and I like how McIntosh immediately knew that this is ambush city. They're gonna come out from the sides and ambush us, and go set up, take the heavy machine gun, and sure enough they got ambushed, and the battle was awesome, but we lost Guido in it. And the long walk to get to that scene really showed the brutality of just walking non-stop.
Because of course, you have like the forts, like which is sort of a defensive system and a defensive like structure. So usually that one fort can communicate with the other, and so that the cities are really basically so that like the warriors, like the desert warriors, can just like overrun everything. But what I also love about this movie is how tactical the Berbers used like everything. For example, going for the ammunition, and especially that like the whole build-up of the fort I really liked. So of course, they have the distribution of the ammunition in the center of the fort, and the goal of the attackers was of course to throw ammunition, to throw like explosives into the center, so to destroy their biggest strength, which is like superior firepower.
And they came in force. Like every time they retreated, it was like they came back stronger. And you just knew that they was going to overwhelm the Legionnaires. No matter how strong they stood their ground, they was going to get overwhelmed. And it really made for some terrifying scenes, because it's like, man, this is a war that you cannot win if you're the Legionnaires.
Yeah, especially when they sent out Luther like on the suicide mission.
Oh man, that shit like. And I was glad that Alan took the shot to end his life, because it's like they was about ready to decapitate him.
Yeah, and
remember, he gave Alan the last bullet, because one of the things that the sergeant told him is that make sure you have one bullet left to take
for
your
yourself.
Life. Yeah,
you don't want to get captured. No. I actually really enjoyed later when McIntosh sacrificed his last bullet to save Ellen.
Yeah, and again, this is coming after McIntosh was willing to sell out Alan to the thugs of the mobster that Alan crossed. Because the beginning of the movie showed that Alan was a boxer, and he approached the mobster, and they made a deal where you take a fall in the second round, and our prize guy win the fight.
Van Damme doesn't take a dive.
He don't take dives. At first he disagreed, then he agreed, and then he was like, he had second thoughts during the fight. His brother's like, man, take the dive so we can get the money and just live off the money. But there's something about the pride of a man that's just like, it's just not right to just take a dive. And when you have a character like Alan who walked out on his girl at the altar because he didn't want to commit. They had a dream of going to America, but he just got cold feet and just left her hanging.
Yeah. What I also really liked about this movie, like I said, with the characters, is especially how the story of Luther and Elaine, like, here basically going total difference, because one wanted to leave the America for like for everything, and the other was to go to America.
Yeah, it's like they want to swap places.
Yeah,
and the respect that they have for each other was developed very well. They could have had more scenes if they had more tension, but I like how they kind of just said, let's ease them in. There's little tension at the beginning, and then they start the bond.
In general, I think because the movie is it's 120 minutes, and which is I think for a movie that tells a story like this is like the perfect time. But this is actually a movie where I was like, I would love to have a 140-minute director's cut. I would even love to have more interactions between the characters, because everyone, especially of the core four, they they're just it's like you just want to be around them because they're so interesting.
Yeah,
you want to spend a little bit more time with them.
And even Guido, who's the weaker link, there's the character trait about him, like he's the young one that feels like he wants to prove himself.
I think the best scene in that case is actually with the soap.
It's like, don't you're using it too much, man. You're supposed to just scrub it like this, and then.
This was a fantastic bonding scene where they were discussing how to correctly use soap, and also how McIntosh, the only one who brought a soap, where it's basically never rely on the army when it comes to fundamental things, which is so fucking true. This is always so funny, when everybody who was at the military and hears something is military grade is oh, there's low quality. Civilians, oh cool, this is military grade.
It's funny how the whole thing with the soap and how they reacted to it. It's like he was getting very testy on how they was using the soap, because he knew how to make sure to manage it. And the military can't be trusted, so they're not going to really give you nothing.
Have you ever read Papillon or seen the movie, the old one?
What was that?
Papillon. That's French for butterfly.
No, I have never.
Which is also plays also plays the Foreign Legion, And I read the book when I was actually at the military. And there's basically all the belongings they left you is you get like a little tube and you can put like the money in, and so that nobody steals it at night, you gotta stick it up your ass and sleep with it there. And this is like also like a topic like in Pavilion.
No, man.
I highly recommend the book. The old movie is also really good. The remake is okay.
Man.
I think the old movie was with Dustin Hoffman. I think.
I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, that's a movie's a little bit of a downer, but it's a fantastic adventure movie. Hey,
what's up, Kenneth? Great to see you. So what other things that you want to talk about with this movie?
I mean, generally, what is very interesting, and it's also shown a little bit by the names, like by the names of many of the Legionnaires. You hear like a lot of German names, and since this was like after the First World War, a lot of people were recruited straight from prisoner of war camps, and since a lot of German soldiers didn't want to go home. After the Second World War, it even became more like that basically, in Indochina, like of course today's Vietnam, I think a big chunk of the Legionnaires were like former Waffen-SS members that after the war, of course, like, well, they cannot join the Legionary because civilian life may not be so interesting to them. Which is also so interesting later on that the US totally underestimated the French Foreign Legion and could have avoided like a lot of deaf people like in Vietnam if they would got some of the lessons that the French Foreign Legion had to learn there. So like still up to today, there's like a lot of German music like used into the tradition of the Foreign Legion. So I like that this movie really also shows it, not really mentioning it, but like the Sergeant Chef like Steinkampf. Steinkampf is a German name. Then they also have like several other characters with German names in there. So this is like something very interesting. And I also love when a movie creates like a very realistic setting without pointing it out to make it too obvious. So, and another thing, of course, is also that Van Damme also think really shines as an actor. I still think to this day, even though he had like also like in his later career some good acting roles, still think that he's very much underestimated as an actor. Which in this movie, of course, shows very much where there's like loss and and he really reflects it very well with his face acting.
Yeah.
And of course also that when you watch this and think it's like it's like a Van Damme movie, like there is no big heroic comeback like in the end.
And I think that's one of the reasons why it's not as much talked about, because it's not the action spectacle that we've seen in a lot of Van Damme films. So when people see Legionnaire and they probably watch like 5 minutes of it and they think, oh, he ain't throw a roundhouse kick yet? Oh, I can't watch this. And he don't throw a single roundhouse kick, which is like, it's blasphemy when you're young and you watch a Van Damme film. It's like, where's the roundhouse kick?
He's like, only does it
he's still
like boxing.
Yeah, we still see his fucking ass in this film.
And of course, like there gotta be a shower scene where he sees ass. It's still this is like the Van Damme rope that is still in the movie.
It's guaranteed that we see that, but we don't see the roundhouse kick with 5 different cuts of it.
Yeah.
But again, that's why I feel like this movie needs more love, because the story is there, it's really good, and it's got some great characters in it. One of the scenes that I really like is how Alain did not give up on Guido when he collapsed in the line.
Yeah.
Because that man has bruised feet through all that brutal walking. And this movie shows that when you walk through the brutal heat of the desert with those rocks and sand, it is not good to your feet.
That scene is is even more painful to watch in the original.
Oh man, I can imagine.
That is like basically after that you basically want to put like a bowl with ice and your feet in while watching.
I mean, the feet is so bruised up that you just want to chop it off to just not feel the pain.
Yeah, it is,
and you really feel for Guido because like he's trying to make it through, but between the lack of water because they were running out of water, they were saying Guido, like just take little sips.
And that's like the thing, when like a lot of things, of course, like that Steinkampf like says, like that first imposter is like, he's a lost cause.
Yeah.
Where it sounds cruel, but of course, like as an officer, you have to say, okay, if somebody helps and carries him, I may risk of losing 2 men. So
and it's the brutality of that situation where you got one man that just can't do it no more, and it puts the weight on the man who wants to keep going with him.
Yes.
Because he developed this relationship with him that he don't want to leave a man behind. So I really thought that whole sequence, and it just shows the brutality of what the Legionnaires have to go through.
And the reality of war, that that in war there's gotta be sacrifices, and
they don't care.
And what I also love about it is that the movie doesn't show like one side bad, the other side good.
Yes, that to me is because while we don't see much of the main character of El Krim, they have their reasons, and because of how colonialism and them wanting to take over that land, they like, no, we're gonna defend our land. We're gonna stop you guys from coming in here and taking control. I think this is why you said the original version we got more dialogue from that.
Yes,
because I feel like we needed to hear more from that side, from Krim's side.
Yes, like I say, I highly recommend to watch also like the original one, which is like it's even better. You have Gene Hackman in there, Terence Hill, you have Ian Holmes, you have Max von Sydow in there. And I think that a lot of, especially like a lot of the futility of even being there in the first place is even better portrayed in the original.
Because you look at what the Big-Bears are doing, they are going all out with they're gonna win regardless, and they will sacrifice many bodies to get their goal and stick it to the Legionnaires. Like, you're not taking over this colony.
Yeah, no. It's and the crazy thing is, these are like all lessons that's still. I mean, it's basically also it's basically the same thing what happened to the US like in Afghanistan. Is you can't occupy a country for long that doesn't want you there. And if you, of course, like if you don't just do scorched earth, etc., but if you basically want to be like in a country and keep it like intact, then it's impossible to occupy a country that is totally hostile to you.
And every time the Berbers came through, they adapted.
Yeah.
They never just came in with the same strategy over and over. They kept adapting to it. And the final attack, that was like broke the Legionnaires completely, because now they were more relentless with throwing the bombs over to destroy the weapons and wipe out almost everybody there. It's like these guys are relentless, and they say, you're not going to get over on us. We may lose one, but we're going to keep coming back.
Yeah, this like they did this really well, especially since I think whether doesn't matter when you watch this movie like on which side you're personally. I don't think that the side you're rooting for is it's like it's getting like a better treatment. Like I think both sides are treated like with dignity and honor. There's a lot of fantastic films out there. Like for example, like I love the British movie Zulu, but I do think that the Zulus could have been portrayed a little bit better in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like a movie that I also highly recommend. It's like the breakout role from Michael Caine.
Yeah.
But like this, especially for a movie that came out, I think when it came out in 90s?
98.
90, like this movie came out in 98 with not a big fanfare behind it.
Straight to video.
Yeah, it does straight to video. And when you think about like the original March or Die is like a critically acclaimed film, and then they're doing like a remake. It doesn't look low budget, like the costumes, the sets, everything looks high budget. But a movie that basically was, it's almost like nobody asked for it in '98. Like for that, this is a fantastic film, and the original is better. But this movie doesn't need to be ashamed standing next to it.
And I think like, the problem with the film is, and I think that's one of the reasons why it went straight to video, is because at this time Van Damme's popularity was starting to decline, and then they didn't know how to advertise this film.
I mean, it's '98 actually. Big respect to Van Damme to act that well because he must have been coked out.
But to be honest, like most people, when they see Van Damme, they're gonna think action.
Yeah.
So, how you advertise this film when it's not an action film? It's a drama film, a war film with some action scenes, but it's not your prototypical Van Damme action.
Yeah, exactly.
So they probably look at the film and it's like, oh, we're not going to make money off of this because it's hard to market it.
I mean, it's even like very hard to find a proper edition of this. Like I still have like the DVD. There's a Blu release of it, but I think this is like a movie that should get maybe from a boutique label. This is actually a movie that should also get like a nice treatment.
And to be honest, the ending is pretty bleak. I mean, Elaine survives, and I love the fact that the Berbers saw that as, he survived. He was the only Legionnaire to survive, and they gave him the respect that. And they said, we're going to let you live and go back to France and tell them, we don't want them in our country. But at the same time, like, he's the only one there. All his soldiers are dead. And they left him in the middle of nowhere. And it's like, fuck, you want me to go all the way back to France with no horse, no nothing?
I mean, they probably left him like a camel or something, like it's something.
I don't know, the way that last shot looked, it looked like he had nothing.
Yeah, the original did it a little bit different. And personally, I love how the original did it.
But this one ended on a bleak note.
It's bleak because, because then that's the thing. The movie did such a great job that you cared for the characters. The end, you even cared for the guy that the mafioso sent, like the other boxer. You even cared for him at the end.
This movie, like, you want to see one of the guys survive, but it's just like, if your name ain't Van Damme, you're dead.
Yeah.
That's just kind of the thing. But at the same time, it's like McIntosh, like his death, he redeemed himself because again, he associated with the mafia because they gave him the opportunity to redeem himself from being shamed from the British army, from being shamed from his father, and for gambling all his debt, his money away. So they gave him another opportunity, and he was willing to sell out Ireland.
Yeah.
So it was like, again, it's like more character development, and when you saw him give that bullet to McIntosh, it's like, man, if only they could have both survived.
Yeah, but
because I really, really liked the McIntosh's character.
Yeah, but for Macintosh, it was probably a wise choice to take
Yes,
the
it was
pathway
the
out
wiser choice.
because best way possible they would have decapitated him the worst way. They would have just hung him somewhere to rot in the sun.
And that's why they say make sure you have that one bullet.
Yeah.
Because when things get dire, just take yourself out, man. You don't want the torture. You don't want to be captured. None of that.
Yeah, I'm really glad you like this film. Because it's really such an underrated champ.
And it's like in the time where you watch a lot of Van Damme films, you see this one, and it's like he's not doing the action scenes that we're used to seeing, so it doesn't grab your attention when you're younger because you just want to see the action. But then you watch it as you're older, and you're like, man, this movie has a lot of depth to it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of meaning to this film. And I really enjoyed it. And now it makes me look forward to talking The Quest, because that was another Van Damme film that I really couldn't get into because of the different setting and how just completely different it was. It wasn't even like Kickboxer or even Lionheart. You know, it didn't even feel like those. It just felt like completely different.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the quest. I'm looking forward to it. I still think that Roger Moore hated it for all the wrong reasons.
And every time I see the movie, like Van Damme and Roger Moore, James Bond, it didn't look right. It didn't look right.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to watching that film. I enjoyed the hell out of Legionnaire, and it's a movie that I will watch again.
Yeah, I really need to upgrade it on Blu-ray, and this actual movie I would also totally buy in 4K if it would ever be released.
Yeah, so yeah, I really enjoyed the Legionnaires. It makes me want to watch Lionheart because he was a Legionnaire in that film as well.
And watch March or Die. Trust me, like if you love this one, you will adore March or Die.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to put that on the list to watch. So hopefully we can talk that in the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything else you want to add?
I think we pretty well discussed it pretty well. It means like everybody watch it. It's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, like I said, it's a movie that always went unnoticed. And again, I didn't give it the respect it deserved. But now I'm giving it the respect. And for a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, it really showed that when he wants to act, he can act.
Absolutely. And when we're gonna talk Lionheart in the future,
yes, we gotta talk about it.
He's also acting great in that one.
I mean, we've fallen down the Van Damme rabbit hole. You know, we did Kickboxer, we did Cyborg. You know, now this. So yeah, we keeping the Van Damme going for next week. Also, another film I was looking at, I'm like, man, this movie I ain't watched in a long time. The Magnificent Seven with Yul Brynner.
I haven't seen that in a long time. I think the last time I saw it was when I was a kid.
And I was like, man, I wouldn't mind revisiting that because I was thinking about the Lighthouse film.
I'm always in for Yul Brynner film because he was just fantastic.
Yeah, so I saw an article on that, and then I just started reading it. I was like, you know what, man?
One of my favorite is also Morituri with Yul Brynner and with Marlon Brando, where which is like a Second World War, like a naval movie, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and then you look at the names in Magnificent Seven, you know, fucking Charles Bronson in that film. Steve McQueen. So I'm like, that's some power hitters in the 60s.
Yeah, no, we totally should talk it. Like, I'm all up. Like, it's those films I can watch any day.
Yeah, so I'm ready to dive into some Yul Brynner films because the man, when we talked that film, I was like, his presence was just so.
Yeah.
It was so powerful that he don't even have to say anything. Yet his facial expression tells the story.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, I also still have to like rewatch like Westworld. It's also fantastic in that one. Literally.
Yeah. So I saw that article. I started reading it, and I was like, you know what? I wanna get back into watching films
Yeah.
more with him in it. So yeah, we gotta talk that film in the future, man.
Absolutely. I'm 100% in.
Yeah. So yeah, that we had a good time talking Legionnaire. I hope everybody will enjoy this video and go check it out. It's free on YouTube. There's multiple videos of showing that on YouTube, so you'll be able to watch it. And we'll be back next week with some more Van Damme goodness. We're gonna be talking The Quest from 1996. Van Damme and Roger Moore. Anything else you got coming up outside of just anything with you and Gary V?
So far, nothing. Brenda still got a message like Gary if he wasn't want to do anything like next month. Otherwise, this weekend I'm just relaxing.
Yeah, I'm relaxing, but I kind of wish I was at Heroes Con just to hang out with everybody. But it is what it is. And also check out the Comic Call crew. We went live last week.
Yeah,
with
it was
Open Mic.
fantastic. Yeah.
Awesome show. And I did this video last week with no show that we did last week. I did a live stream showing off all my slabs. So check that out if you got the time. So we'll be back next week. Until then, I hope everybody have a great weekend. Peace.